We had 14 projects this year with a combined ask of almost $46 million. We only have $6.7 million to dispense. So we're hoping that 3 of these projects will compete for a separate funding source intended for large projects. I'm going to run through all 14 projects briefly, and at the end you can ask questions if you want. And also most of the project sponsors are here today. So if you want to ask more detailed questions, they're here for that. Riparian restoration has been a priority in the Skagit for years. And this year we have 5 riparian projects. And we also have an extra $1 million in new funding for riparian projects. So the first 3 projects I'm going to go over are from the Skagit River System Co-op. Upper Martin Slough for $138,000 will be planting along a slough in the floodplain, which is important rearing habitat for juvenile Chinook and other salmonids. Next is Razor Park, and this project's for $143,000, and it includes planting along the Skagit main stem. And in this picture, you can see the purple parts are phase 1, and then the green parts are phase 2, so it's a big project. Next is the collaborative project, and this collaborative project includes 4 sites. These collaborative projects are a little bit different from other riparian projects. We have 2 of them, one from SRSC and one from Skagit Fisheries Enhancement Group. And the collaborative projects are part of a special set-aside amount in our grant round, specifically for these smaller projects and stewardship projects that might be difficult to fund as standalone projects. These projects are still important, so we try to make sure that they're going to get funding by having this special set aside. The next group of collaborative projects is by SFEG, and the collaborative part of this means that the sponsors get together and figure out what the priorities are for that year, and they divvy up the work. So they're sharing that set aside amount of money and dividing it up. So this one is 3 projects or 3 sites for $111,000. So next we have another SFEG restoration project for $3,600, and that's DeBay's Slough. It includes 2 sites that are near each other, but they're treated as one project. This project is kind of exciting because it's looking at knotweed removal, and this particular project only became eligible for funding this year with the new funding source. And it's important to note that if the Climate Commitment Act fails at the ballot in November, that riparian $1 million will go away, along with lots of other salmon restoration funding and also some funding for working lands. So make sure you do your homework on the Climate Commitment Act. That's really important. Next, we have the non-riparian restoration projects. This is Island Unit. This is our biggest project at $29 million. This is a huge restoration project that's been in the works for a decade. And all of these bigger estuary and the one big pocket estuary project, they've been in the works for a long, long time. By the time these projects make it to construction, which is where they're at now, we have 3 big ones going to construction. They've already gotten grants for feasibility and preliminary design and final design. So a lot of money and time has already gone into them, and then they're ready to go to construction. And that's, you know, like a big celebration, right? But that's the expensive part. And it just so happened, these projects have been in the pipeline for a long time. Just so happened they all came up for construction funding in one year, and one of them last year as well. So that's a little tricky to figure out in terms of funding, but hopefully these big projects will be able to get large capital funds. Island Unit is going to restore 270 acres of estuary habitat that's currently behind dikes. Part of the reason that one is so expensive is because it is on an island and it's very difficult to get to. The other big estuary project is Smokehouse, and this is on the north end of the Swinomish Reservation. And it's for $8.5 million, and it's going to restore 255 acres. Okay, so next we have 3 pocket estuary projects. One of them is a really big project. This is the 3rd big project I was talking about. It's Smilk Bay. It's on the site of the Swinomish Golf Course, and it's going to restore tidal channel marsh habitat and coastal stream habitat. So these next 2 pocket estuaries are really odd ducks because they are both in Island County. And Skagit fish are using these habitats, and we've identified them as priority habitats, tier 2 priority habitats, including all of the pocket estuaries in Whidbey Basin. But the fish don't actually recognize county boundaries. So we're going to try to fund them. It's tricky because they're actually, one of them is going through both the Island County grant round and the Skagit grant round. So we'll see how all of those shenanigans work out, but we're going to try to fund them. Mailer Marsh, this one is a feasibility assessment. So they're going to look for options to enhance the tidal channel marsh habitat in a pocket estuary that already exists and improve its connectivity. So they're trying to get more bang for the buck at this site because finding pocket estuaries that are intact is hard. So hopefully they can get more out of this one. The next one is Race Lagoon, and it's for $900,000. And it's to fix a fish barrier on the coastal stream. You can see that green coastal stream coming in on the left side of the screen. And we know from other projects that are similar to this, that reconnecting coastal streams to pocket estuaries has a pretty immediate effect of a lot more fish using the area. So now we're going to head back upriver. We have 2 projects upriver. First is the Cascade Fill Removal Feasibility Assessment. So this one's going to look at trying to remove a bunch of road fill on the floodplain. And you can see up where the yellow arrow is, that's where the fill is impeding processes on the floodplain because the river, this is the Cascade River, is pinched between the one part of the bridge abutment and then that road fill, which is actually connected to a bridge. The last project we're going to look at before of the restoration projects is Pressenton. And this is another odd duck, actually. It's a project that is looking at a site that was restored, but then the restoration effort was damaged in the 2021 flood, decreasing the amount of habitat for fish. So they're going to look at whether or not anything can be done to improve habitat again at this site within the conditions that exist now. So this is called adaptive management. And it's another important way to steward restoration projects because we can't just assume that we build it and we walk away and it's always going to be perfect. Last but not least is the acquisition project. The Watershed Council has a habitat protection strategy that defines what high quality habitat is eligible for purchase under these acquisition grants. If funded, this amount of money would go into a block grant that would then be available to conservation landowners to purchase properties as they become available. The authorization for that is by using the criteria of the protection strategy. This block grant is a really important, cool thing because it allows the conservation landowners to respond quickly to address sellers' needs and also to respond to market conditions. And so it's made our acquisition program very successful. This year, they're asking for $3.2 million. This amount would cover 4 years of land acquisition.